This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world, and all you infrastructurists out there. We know who you are. Yours truly, John Bailey, the Citizen Net reporter, with Jim Benerofe, the Dean of Journalism in White Plains, New York, USA, and the anchor for all seasons, Peter Katz. And we are in the 16th year of White Plains Week on White Plains Television. And let's go immediately to the headlines with Jim Benerofe.
And here are the headlines for National Infrastructure Week, June 9th, 2017. Lower Hudson Transit Link announces ramp metering entrance locations on Cross Westchester Expressway and new high-tech bus stations. We have video. Somers Middle School unveils first K solar installation of solar power. Governor Cuomo takes strong stand for continuing New York global warming prevention standards. Westchester County Executive Robert Astorino announces strong opioid community initiative to warn and educate. Opioid deaths rise 200% in 5 years. Petition signing begins in White Plains. Mayor Tom Roach reaches out by phone to Democrats to sign petitions only supporting him and his running mates. Democratic City Committee Chairman is asked to resign by mayoral candidate Milagros Lacuna and Councilwoman Milagros Lacuna. We will have Peter Katz's weekly feature, Trump the President, 1,309 episodes to come. 55 Bank Street agrees to sewer upgrade payment. Cancer Survivors Day is celebrated at White Plains Hospital. Saturday is the Juneteenth parade in White Plains.
At the library.
New with a parade and festival on Court Street.
Okay, thank you, Jim. And the Lower Hudson Link, as we see on our opening slide, introduced the new traffic management plan for I-287 this year after the new Tappan Zee Bridge opens. The announcements were made at 2 public outreach meetings in Nyack and White Plains. Peter Katz and I covered the White Plains meeting. Peter.
Well, you know, if you were wondering what happened to the bus rapid transit promised to connect Rockland and Westchester once the new Tappan Zee Bridge is open, we do have some news, and it's no longer promoted as bus rapid transit, but rather it's part of what they call the Lower Hudson Transit Link program.
The New York State Department of Transportation set up shop at the Arts Westchester building in White Plains the evening of June 8th to brief business people and residents on its plans for the Lower Hudson Transit Link program. This involves a new bus system between Rockland and Westchester to cover key residential and employment destinations between Suffern and Mondsey to the west and White Plains to the east. 31 buses have just been ordered for the system to be operational in the fall of 2018. Also on tap, putting metering systems on 13 ramps to control the flow of vehicles onto Interstate 287 and the Thruway. DOT says this will ease rush hour congestion. Todd Westuse is the DOT's Region 8 director.
We're going to be taking delivery of those buses in June of 2018, and that's going to give us a shakeout period leading up to the launch date in October 2018, because we're going to have a lot of technology integration, new devices on the buses to help the traveler understand when the bus is arriving, what their connection is going to be at Metro North. We'll be servicing I-287 and also Tarrytown via Route 9, short section of 119 through White Plains, but also Route 59 is going to see significant benefits from the service in Rockland County. I think that, you know, as people look to move to cities, to large, urban areas, they look for a good transit solution these days, and that's what we're providing with this service. The other thing too is for our folks that are, dependent on a workforce that may not live in the vicinity of that business, a good deal of the users for this bus here and this bus service will be those workers that are moving or trying to travel from Rockland to Westchester County, and they're looking for a reliable and affordable transit option, and that's what we're providing.
Brad Hartwig is the project manager for the Lower Hudson Transit Link program.
So a ramp metering system is really a strategy on helping to improve the flow of traffic on a congested motorway. So the principle is that we have equipment located on ramps that detect how much traffic is running both on the main line as well as the ramp, and we have traffic signals there to stop traffic at a stop bar to then regulate the flow of traffic onto the main line. And it really helps with improving the weaving and merging of traffic onto the road to smooth that out, which provides overall benefits for travel time. The ramp metering sites have traffic sensors in the pavement, which tell us both how fast the traffic is flowing on the main line, but on the ramp as well, how many cars are actually stored on the ramp. So we know how much traffic is actually banking up on a ramp, and then also we have a sensor at the rear of the ramp that tells us when we've reached capacity. And once that happens, it tells the system to release all the traffic on the ramp.
Now, the metering systems, such as they're proposing, have been in use in Los Angeles for at least 40 years that I know of. Someone told me just this morning that they have them out in Chicago also, and pretty much are useless in terms of alleviating traffic congestion. We all know that the Los Angeles freeways are as congested as they ever were. In Chicago, I'm told from someone who used the highways that have the metering systems out there,
in place,
that they're pretty much an annoyance. and what happens is that while you're stuck at the red light waiting to get on the highway, you're really not reducing the number of cars, because those cars which have gotten on the highway before that ramp are already bumper to bumper.
Well, I was talking to the transportation editor of the San Francisco Chronicle yesterday, and he said it does ease the traffic somewhat outside the Bay Area on the various freeways, but there is still traffic and congestion. So he says it improves, but it's a mixed bag.
The other thing is that they're only going to put these metered ramps on certain of the on-ramps.
Yeah, let's take a, I have a slide for that.
When they do that, you're still going to have people able to get on 287 and on the Thruway, just as they always have, without being metered, and that alone is going to allow the volume to pile up.
What happens when they have emergency equipment that has to get on? Do they?
There will be a way of bypassing that, but depending upon how wide the ramp is, that may be a problem. If you don't have a wide enough shoulder, or you haven't designated an area, you point out a very significant problem. If you're being brought in an ambulance to, let's say, White Plains Hospital, and you have to use Interstate 287 during the rush hour,
not a good thing to do.
You don't want to be stuck on a metered ramp.
Now, the project manager, Peter and Jim, said that there is not going to be any new construction on either widening or narrowing any of the exits. They're just going to stick the sensors into the pavement.
You have to put up the lights, and you have to have some place for the
the computer system that's going to actually
And
drive
it
this.
says it's going to cost about $10 million. Now, as far as bus routes go, we do have a slide showing where these new stations are going to
Now,
be
this
in
is
White
just,
Plains.
this is just the White Plains,
That's
and
right.
and they're apparently they've cross-listed Broadway with Court Street. I think Broadway, if you're going from the Galleria, you get
Broadway is the
you
last
get to
stop.
Court Street before you
right.
get to Broadway.
Of course you do, right. But on the other hand, it's a big and complex system. But anyway, there are going to be 31 new rapid transit buses. They've already been ordered. They're going to be routed on Route 119, no dedicated lane, and the stops are going to be where they are, and they're going to build whole new stations.
One thing that we were told was that the buses would be running very frequently, and that, of course, is an important part if you intend to get anyone to use it. In New York City, I like to point out that the subways operate on what's called a headway, in other words, the time between trains, of typically 6 minutes.
That is an amazing system.
So you know.
Interesting enough, I'm curious, do they say what size the buses are?
No, they did not
No
disclose that
pictures
last night.
of buses. No
So
pictures
we
of
don't
buses.
know whether they're going to be single buses, or the tandem trailer type buses that we see
They have
being
those.
used
Those
here
are,
in
I think,
Westchester.
those are disasters. I think
Wow.
they screw up traffic more than they help.
Well, we await more
Anyway,
information.
they were positive that all of this stuff will start happening in the fall of 2018. And of course,
Absolutely.
the target for opening the Tappan Zee is just about upon us, right?
Late fall now,
Yeah.
2018 is what they said last night. Now, Somers Middle School opened its new solar power installation early this week, the first to be opened in the state under Governor Cuomo's Solar Power K-Solar Initiative. And Frank Stefanelli, administrator of White Plains Schools Buildings and Grounds, told WPCNR White Plains will soon be installing solar panels on the new Post Road School and the White Plains High School already approved.
One thing before you get off that picture, you'll notice the roof and you'll notice the extent of the use of the solar panels. When you have a large roof area, large flat roof area, you can get a lot of solar panels in, and they can be tied together to generate an awful lot of power, in some cases as much as a building can ever need. Over at the Business Journal, I wrote a little story on a building in Stamford which has just come online. This is 5,800 square foot roof, but with the panels there, it generates all of the electricity this building needs.
Right. And those White Plains High School and Post Road School contracts are in the process of being finalized. Peter, you were impressed with Governor Cuomo's stalwart positions on continuing global warming conservation efforts.
Well, not only me, but billionaire and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg has committed $15 million to helping launch the effort by states, municipalities, and businesses to keep the U.S. in compliance with the Paris Agreement on climate change, even though President Trump announced, as we know, that he's pulling the country out of the agreement, for which the whole world signed up, except for Nicaragua and Syria. Last Friday, as we were recording last week's program, Governor Cuomo was busy denouncing what Trump had done.
On June 2nd, the day after President Trump announced pulling out of the Paris Agreement on climate change, Governor Cuomo was in Southampton to meet with Suffolk County officials. He announced $2 million in funding to clean up algae contamination of Long Island Sound. He also commented on plans for New York State to join with other states and some municipalities to follow provisions of the Paris Agreement despite the U.S. pullout.
The federal government obviously has announced, President Trump announced that he's not going to follow the Paris Accord. I think that is a tremendous mistake. I think it was a great world advancement that accord was reached. Secretary John Kerry at the time did a tremendous amount of work on it. I talked to him yesterday about it. But it was a great step forward. It was an international recognition of the problem and the scale, and it was an international agreement to move forward. I think it has a potentially devastating impact. And I said, we're going a different way as the state of New York. We're going to follow the accord. We're doing it individually. We joined with California, and when you have California and New York together, you have two of the largest players, literally, in this area. And we're joining on with other states and other mayors. I don't believe the people of this country support the withdrawal from the accord. I don't believe it. I believe people understand that the environment is under stress. People understand that we have extreme weather problems that we never had before. People get it. People see the brown tide. People see 7 feet of snow in Buffalo. Buffalo gets snow, but they never had 7 feet of snow. We have tornadoes in New York State. We never had tornadoes in New York State. We have a problem with Lake Ontario right now. It's at its highest level in recorded history, and it's flooding the shoreline. People get it. They're smart. So I don't understand the thinking or the reasoning, but we're going the other way, and we're going to bring a lot of other people with us.
Now, here in White Plains, they're trying to bring a lot of other people together, but it's not for the environment.
That way.
It's quite political.
Yes. Petition signing began Tuesday for Democratic district leaders and supporters seeking to get their choice ticket of Mayor Roach, John Martin, John Kirkpatrick, and Justin Brash, or challengers for Mayor Milagros Lacuna and her running mates, Michael Craver, Alan Goldman, and Saad Siddiqui, on the September primary ballot. And it produced the shocker of the week. Tuesday evening, Democratic registered voters received this robocall from incumbent Mayor Tom Roach. Let's listen.
Hello, this is Mayor Tom Roach with a message about the petitioning process in my re-election campaign. This call is paid for by friends of Tom Roach. I'm pleased to have been endorsed by the White Plains Democratic City Committee, but I do have an opponent, so I'm asking my supporters to be careful and only sign petitions for mayor and city council that include me and my running mates. We're headed in the right direction. Let's keep White Plains the progressive leader in our region. Thank you for your support.
Well, and that is for a primary election in September.
You know, it's not the first time that mayors have faced primaries. Jim, you'll remember, as I do, that Al Del Vecchio faced a challenger in Michael Coffey, who was a councilman, and that was on the Republican side, and actually Coffey won the primary. So in that race, Coffey ran on the Republican ticket, and Del Vecchio ran and basically an independent campaign. And he lost.
Right.
So, you know, when Mayor Roach is starting here to try to line up and fire up his supporters, I think he's being smart politically.
Well, at least, there are some candidates who don't pay attention to what they think they have.
Yeah. Well,
They don't, and I don't know who that could be. But
Lacuna has a fair number of signs in the south end of town.
and early on.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking, we still have a couple of months, I believe, until the Democratic primary would take place.
Right, and she's currently defending one of her running mates, Mr. Goldman, against charges that he is anti-immigrant, and you can read all about that. Exciting letter exchange on my WPCNR.com.
How did I know you would say WPCNR.com?
Well,
My
I'm
goodness.
plugging it. Meanwhile,
when you're not reading that, you can go try to spot the stars in White Plains. There's a new movie being filmed at the old AT&T building in White Plains. You may remember that just recently,
converting it to apartments.
They got approval to convert that to apartments. It's being done by Steven Spielberg, and it stars Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. And they'll be filming in White Plains for a couple of weeks. Hanks plays Washington Post editor Ben Bradley, and Streep plays the publisher and owner, Katharine Graham. And it's about
that's an improvement.
It's about when the Washington Post published the Pentagon Papers. You remember that?
That was
expose of the Vietnam War?
Actually, I had lunch with Katharine Graham.
She was quite a woman, and
Yes.
a tough lady. especially when it came to dealing with the Nixon administration. Anyway, they supposedly have recreated the Washington Post newsroom from the early 70s in the AT&T building here in White Plains.
And you have a percentage of the gross, right? Okay. Now, of course, we have 1,309 more days to go in President Trump's first term, so it's time to recap the week with Peter.
Well, there was only one big Trump story this week, and actually it was the James Comey story. The former FBI director testified under oath to the Senate Intelligence Committee. He essentially said that President Trump told lies, plain and simple, in his effort to cover up the reason that Comey was fired as FBI director. Now, after being quiet all day yesterday, Trump tweeted this morning about that, and Trump said, quote, "Despite so many false statements and lies, total and complete vindication. And wow, Comey is a leaker." That's Trump trying to discredit Jim Comey's character. Right.
The first crybaby president, right?
Trump also dragged out Mark Kasowitz, who is the president's longtime attorney, and he is representing Trump personally in anything that may come up in this Russia investigation matter. Kasowitz also attacked Comey. When you don't have a story, this is the old thing in the news business, when you don't have a story to tell, you attack the messenger, right? Don't attack the message, attack the messenger. So that's what they're doing. He denied, he denied some of what Comey had said, but he didn't deny everything that Comey said, which some people found very interesting. Comey admitted in his testimony that after he was fired and no longer a government employee, he asked a friend, a college professor, to deliver a copy of one of his contemporaneous notes about what Trump was trying to get him to do to a reporter. And he said that was because he and his wife were going to go into hiding to avoid the storm which was brewing over his firing. The memo described one of his conversations with Trump and showed that the White House had been lying in what they were telling the public. So now Comey is being attacked as a leaker, but of course it was not any kind of secret material that he leaked.
It was his own notes. You can leak your own notes.
Right.
Right?
He said that
if you can read them.
Comey said he did this because his judgment was that he needed to get this information out into the public. And he asked his friend to do it because he thought doing this might prompt the appointment of a special counsel so that there would be a completely independent individual looking at this investigation.
Now, who has to appoint special counsel?
In this case, it's typically done by the U.S. Attorney General. The U.S. Attorney General recused himself from anything to do with the Russia-Trump investigations.
And so it's the assistant.
So the assistant is the one who appointed Robert Mueller, former head of the FBI, as the special counsel. Comey also commented during the testimony that he kept thorough notes of all of his interactions with the president. He also pointed out that President Trump lied when Trump said that Comey had telephoned him. He said he never initiated any interaction with the president. Trump also had on television, in an interview with Lester Holt, said that Comey asked to have dinner with Trump at the White House. Comey said that was not true. 5 times during the testimony, Comey said that President Trump had lied. Now, Trump this morning brought back Corey Lewandowski, the former campaign chairman who attacked reporters, to the Today Show. And on the Today Show, Lewandowski attacked Comey's character. When pressed, though, he was unable to refute the content of Comey's testimony. House Speaker Paul Ryan said, "The president is new at this. He's new to government. So he probably wasn't steeped in the long-running protocols that established relationships between the FBI and the White House."
Those protocols are such a problem. Yeah.
Comey testified that he interpreted a remark that Trump made as an absolute direction and order, if you will, from the president to end the probe into Mike Flynn. The Senate Intelligence Committee expects top presidential advisor and son-in-law Jared Kushner to meet with its staffers this month, according to a report from NBC News attributed to a source. The committee supposedly expects Kushner to meet with staff and provide documents and take questions from the senators. Now, Kushner, as
Maybe
you may
he'll
remember,
take the fifth.
Kushner has come under scrutiny because he met with a Russian banker who runs a Russian bank which is controlled by Vladimir Putin. The fellow's name is Sergei Gorkov. He's the banker. Trump's idea for privatizing air traffic control appears to be headed for defeat in the Congress because they are widely split, even among Republicans, as to whether putting the air traffic control system into private hands, essentially dominated by the airlines who use the system, would be a good idea. Democrats have pushed for another nearly $1 trillion of federal funding under Barack Obama when he was president, and we think that they will be working with the Republicans to try to actually do something to get some money spent on rebuilding America's infrastructure.
And speaking of infrastructure, Infrastructure Week found the Common Council on Monday approving an agreement with 55 Bank Street, which will find the developers paying $250,000 to the city for either relining the existing sewer line or replacing it. It's a good thing. We've been talking about that for a while.
Well, the question is, are the sewer lines and other infrastructure
Can they
features
handle
in
the
White
new
Plains,
flow?
are they being overtaxed at this point?
yes.
There's a lot of development that's going to come online.
Well, there's a lot of piping, and I don't know if this has to do with the sewer system. Probably does. There's a lot of surface piping that's run around that 55 Bank Street project on Bank Street.
Well, they will do that to bring in water to the project temporarily during the construction period. But the question is, after the construction, can the sewer system handle it? Can the water system handle it?
Well, at least they're
apparently
paying attention.
According to what you said, they are already upgrading the system. They're just getting 55 Bank Street to agree to
That's right.
pay for some of it.
Jim, you were at the book fair last Friday. Quick notes?
This was down in the city?
Yeah.
Yes, I was down at Book Expo America. It's the fourth time that I've been to it, and it was really interesting.
Were there any interesting people there?
Oh, yes. Hillary Clinton was there. Al Franken was there. Stephen King was there, although he didn't say too much.
And we hear print books are coming back, right?
Yes. Print books are still on top of the barrel as far as, and it's interesting.
Compared with electronic
Yes.
reading.
Right.
Millennials like print books. And
That's great. Well, we like them too.
If we can get them to like White Plains Week.
Yes. Got a sponsor. John Bailey, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week. News and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.